Welcome to Ohio Roots, the official podcast of the Ohio Genealogical Society. Join us as we embark on a captivating journey through Ohio's rich genealogy, history, and abundant resources. Hosted by me, OGS Executive Director Noel Poirier, this podcast brings you insightful conversations with a diverse array of guests, from OGS members, chapter leaders, and staff to renowned genealogists, historians, and influential figures within the genealogical community. Each episode delves into fascinating topics and captivating stories. So grab your headphones, hit that play button, and join us on this enthralling journey of Ohio's roots. Today I'm speaking with Jim Beidler. Jim is the Interim Executive Director for the Genealogical Society of Pennsylvania. I've been really looking forward to this conversation because I wanted to talk to Jim about what we have in common with Pennsylvania, how Ohio and Pennsylvania are kind of symbiotic in many ways in terms of genealogy, and to find out more about what the Genealogical Society of Pennsylvania is doing and what they offer to their membership. So welcome, Jim Beidler, to our Ohio Roots podcast, and I hope you enjoy listening. Well, Jim Beidler from the Genealogical Society of Pennsylvania, thank you so much for joining us on the Ohio Roots podcast today. I really appreciate you taking some time to talk to us about the GSP and what y'all are working on.
You're very welcome, Noel. I'm always excited to do anything with OGS. I think I've been a speaker there for 13 consecutive years, which is making me feel a little bit old, but it's always a great conference, and it has led to some good partnership between Genealogical Society of Pennsylvania and OGS.
Yeah, I've had the pleasure of watching your presentations the last couple of years, so it's been really good. I'm going to start with a question I ask everybody at the beginning of these podcasts, which is kind of what is your genealogical origin story? You know, what got you interested, brought you into the fold, motivated you to really pursue genealogy and family history?
Yeah, well, the first thing is it's been a while. Next year, as a matter of fact, it'll be 40 years that I've been involved. Wow. And the way it happened is my mother was working on a 250th anniversary history book for the church at which she was a member of, and at the time I was a member of also. And as we were writing and editing this history, we'd come across names that were familiar because there was one line. Her maiden surname was locally famous in my area of Pennsylvania. Okay. And we had that had been traced for us back to an immigrant. But then they had the names of the wives, and those surnames, kind of fascinated me because as we were going through the history, we would find that surname attached to people that were on building committees or lists of elders and things like that. And so I rather famously decided, we only lived a mile away from this church, I'm going to take a trip down to the old graveyard and see if there's anything else I can find. Well, it didn't take too many minutes before I found the parents of one of those wives, and very detailed old German tombstones, which only a few rows over, there were his parents as were listed on his tombstone. And then in that same row were his grandparents. So my genealogy was kind of off and running in a very real sense. I never came back from that graveyard.
Okay. Well, that's a good way to do it. You're very lucky to have all of them all in one place. That was kind of helpful, I guess. Initially.
As it turned out, I have 36 direct line ancestors on the burial grounds of that church.
Wow. Where was this church?
It's Byrne Church in Byrne Township, Berks County, Pennsylvania.
Okay, yeah. Berks County. Okay. Yeah. I'm a Lancaster County native myself, so just down the road from there.
Just down the road. Yep.
The Genealogical Society of Pennsylvania has been around a long time. So I was wondering, and so I'm not going to ask you to give a complete history of the Genealogical Society of Pennsylvania, but if you could just give everybody listening an idea of the organization, how long, what it's done, where it's been, and things like that. That'd be great.
Yeah. Well, I would call us a first wave society.
Okay.
Ohio is kind of a second wave society,
Sure.
the big
Sure.
wave that came around the time of Roots. We were
Hmm.
founded in 1892. We
Hmm.
were originally the Genealogy Committee of the Historical Society of
Okay.
Pennsylvania, that grew from a committee to a separately incorporated organization,
Right.
and have continued over the years to having various relationships between GSP and HSP. Currently, we have our
Okay.
own small facility, we've contributed greatly to Pennsylvania records being microfilmed, being
Hmm.
abstracted, all those sorts of things over the years.
Okay. Does the society work at all, or partner at all with the PHMC, the Pennsylvania Historical Museum Commission?
Oh well, I myself, and I'm just wrapping up my second
Hmm.
time at GSP as executive director.
Okay.
At various times, beginning in my first incarnation at GSP 20 years ago, I've been on the State Historic Records Advisory
Okay.
Board, or
Okay.
SHRAB for Pennsylvania, and that has
Okay.
helped keep us in
Okay.
touch with the Pennsylvania Commission and its subsidiary of our most interest, the
Sure.
Pennsylvania State Archives.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting. I know here in Ohio, the records are just scattered everywhere. Um, in terms of having a centralized location to look for anything is really difficult here, and I know that's the same in a lot of other places. But I'm curious as to how, being another statewide organization, how your members access those records and the things that they need, across the state. If that's something they do, or do you facilitate those things with them?
Yeah. Well, on our website, we do have county guides
Hmm.
for most of the Pennsylvania counties,
Okay.
because in truth, I think we're even more diffuse than Ohio. At least your county societies are chapters.
That's very
Uh,
true.
yeah, whereas while we're working on putting together a Pennsylvania genealogical network
Hmm.
with those groups. It's that they are very independent. They are very
Sure. Yeah.
independent, and so yeah, you do have things at a lot of places, because it's not just counties. I mean, there are a lot of historical or genealogical groups for just individual Pennsylvania townships.
Hmm. Sure.
And really, you ignore those at your peril, because a lot of
Hmm.
times those organizations will have the people on the ground who have the
Right.
local expertise, that forget the records. They know exactly how the families in that particular
Right.
township
Right.
or small region all knit together, because they're related to all of
Yeah.
them.
Right. 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 They're all connected.
Yeah.
Um, are there projects that GSP undertakes by itself, as its own, under kind of its own banner?
Yeah, well, one of the things that we just completed in August is we had a week-long virtual conference called Page,
Okay.
Pennsylvania's genealogy event.
Hmm.
And we hope to do that every other year,
Okay.
at least as a virtual conference. Other things that we started back doing third Thursday webinars on a monthly
Hmm.
basis,
Sure.
that are free to the public. The perk for our GSP members is you get access to a recording in addition
Right.
to coming to the live version of it. And we're hoping in 2024 to do quarterly one-day seminars. And
Hmm.
in our more medium-term future, we're hoping to get enough funding to bring back our scholarly journal, the Pennsylvania
Okay.
Genealogical Magazine, to
Okay.
publish that twice a year.
Right. How long has that been not published?
I believe 2015 is
Okay,
when it
so not
on
hasn't been gone that long.
when it went on so-called hiatus. Yeah.
Hiatus. Okay. You mentioned virtual program, and I can commiserate with you as a genealogical society professional that the advent of COVID and what COVID did to social settings and why people get together sometimes, which is primarily social, as opposed, we have chapter meetings, we have OGS meetings, but yes, we're learning things, but I think the main impetus for those is to be around other people who do the same thing. And it seems like, embracing the virtual presentation of programming and education has been a challenge for us because, and I'm sure it's a challenge for your audience as well, in that they have to be familiar with the technology, they have to be familiar with all the, the tricks that go along with it. I'm curious if you feel like your moving to hybrid has benefited your current members, or has it attracted younger members or newer members, or what's your take on how virtual learning is affecting the genealogical community?
Yeah. Well, as far as I mean, all of the above of those categories, it has
Mhm.
benefited, but especially the distance membership,
Right.
and uh, so I'm I'm a big believer that uh, the things you do in person are going to be, or in person only, are going to be pretty sparing going forward, because simply and this is kind of across the board. I've seen in all sizes of genealogy groups,
Mm.
in person is not coming back, and I don't think is ever
Right.
going to
Right.
come back to the levels of
Right.
registration
Yeah.
that it did pre-pandemic. So it's, what things do you do online only? What things do
Hmm.
you do hybrid with expectations that of what the in person will be, and the limited number of in
Right.
person things that you do, realizing that that will cater to a relatively small segment of your membership. I mean,
Right.
we're doing currently a monthly special interest group that we call Genealogists Helping Genealogists,
Oh, that
and
sounds
that's
great.
yes, it's in person only, and it's designed as a round table, and we hope that it'll be a source of some additional
Right.
volunteers at our small headquarters. But the main thing is to give people something social. But other
Right.
than southeastern Pennsylvania and New Jersey across the Delaware River, we're not going to get anybody to that, because we have
Right.
many members in Utah, California,
Sure.
and so forth. So I think using hybrid effectively is the real ticket for genealogy groups going forward.
The Ohio Roots podcast is brought to you by the Ohio Genealogical Society, the premier gateway for discovering your Ohio family history. To learn more about joining, visit www.ogs.org.
If you enjoy listening to the Ohio Roots podcast, we would really appreciate it if you could go to whatever platform it is that you listen and give us a good review. Reviews help us get more listeners and reach more people with Ohio Roots and what we're trying to do with the Ohio Genealogical Society. So please leave us a nice review, and thanks for listening. I know from our standpoint at OGS, we're really trying to focus a lot on making sure all of our members can access what we have, as opposed to just those members who are either attending a conference physically or are attending the library and archive physically. And that creates different challenges in terms of technology and in terms of where you allocate the limited resources you have as an organization, to make sure that you can achieve those things. I know that, one of our visions for the future OGS is that we are essentially the portal through which people find Ohio genealogical material. Doesn't mean we have it. It just means we are the ones that help people find what they're looking for, whether it's at a chapter or a museum or a library or whatever. We want to be able to have those resources to do that. And that's a challenge because, again, a lot of folks miss out on that one-on-one, but I agree with you 100%. I've given in-person presentations to 3 or 4 people, and we're doing webinars to 40 or 50. or 60. I mean, so it seems like, that's the logical course of action. I mean, makes sense to me anyway. I think we probably face many of the same challenges, but I'm curious from your perspective in Pennsylvania, what are the greatest challenges you see, not just necessarily with the Genealogical Society of Pennsylvania, but with attracting people to do genealogy in the first place?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think there's any problem attracting people to do what they might call a form of genealogy.
Right.
They spit in a tube, do their DNA test.
Right.
It comes back 50% German and 50% English, and they think they're done. So
Right.
It's how do we make them into more of a family historian?
Right.
I think that is the real challenge. And just a little memory chip that you spurred, that portal idea,
Mhm.
that's the same thing, that ambition that we have for GSP.
Sure.
And again, nobody's going to have everything, but where to guide people.
Right. Exactly.
That's the good thing about it. But yeah, we're, like I say, we're working on a Pennsylvania genealogy network with the smaller organizations, and we really think that bringing back the scholarly journal, that if we're able to do that, I mean, there's a great demand for I mean, I have a couple of issues, articles for a couple of issues lined up already, because that many people have Pennsylvania ancestors that they want to talk about and show how they managed to solve a thorny problem or what
Mhm.
have you. The other thing we have, and I know this is similar to Ohio, is we have a First Families of Pennsylvania Lineage Society.
Right.
And
Sure.
that's very very popular with people. And currently we have three categories based on the time that an ancestor first set foot in
Okay.
Pennsylvania. Currently, it leaves off at 1900, but
Okay.
we're just in the final stages of adding another category that we're going to call Centennial Pennsylvanians, and
Okay.
the qualification for that will be at least 100 years from the application date of the person, so that's
Okay.
going to be flexible and continually moving forward every year.
Sure. Sure.
Currently, it would be up to 1923.
Right.
And
That
we're
seems
not.
like an interesting way to open it up to a
Yeah.
larger audience of people. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Because we have a huge number of people whose only Pennsylvania ancestor was somebody who came in that high immigration era right before World War One.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I think, being Ohio is in many ways an extension of Pennsylvania, in the sense of people moving into Ohio from Pennsylvania, and we have a similar challenge.
You can say that. I'm not going to, but
Well, I mean, I'm a Pennsylvanian, so I have a bias to it. But just researching in the community in which I live, which is in Tuscarawas County, Ohio, which is really Appalachia, Ohio.
Yep.
Most of the people who settled here were from either Western Virginia or Western Pennsylvania. Early on, anyway. And then later, and this is the challenge we have as well, I think. But in the 1870s, 80s, 90s, 1900, we had a huge influx of Italian immigration. We had a huge influx of Hungarian and Central European immigration. Many of those folks do not fit into our own lineage societies, and so the challenge is, how do we, as an organization, sharing this with you, how do we reach those people too? One of the folks I interviewed for the podcast, and it'll be one of the next ones that'll come out, is Thomas Cirincione, who's the president of the Cleveland Italian Ancestry Organization. So a very focused group of people focused on Italian immigrants to the Cleveland area, which really postdate most of what we talk about when we talk about first families, settlers of Ohio, things like that. So the challenge of reaching younger people, younger generations of Ohioans, I think we share that. We share a similar thing with what you're doing in Pennsylvania, and it is a challenge. I think I'll piggyback on your comment too about spitting in a tube and having your genealogy be done. I also think one of the challenges with making people better family historians is they rely very heavily on things like Ancestry.com or what they see there, and lack maybe the critical research skills to delineate from what they're seeing to what is reality. And I think that's a big challenge as well. I know I'm academically trained as a historian, and so I'm very specific. I'm very important. Sources are very important to me, and as they are to genealogists. And so I think piggybacking on the DNA, they'll spit in a tube, they'll send it to Ancestry, they'll look on Ancestry, they'll get a little leaf on whatever it is they've put on there. They'll add that person to their family tree, and they have nothing to do with them. So it's educating people about that, I think, is a challenge, and I guess we just kind of did a little bit, if they listen. So we'll see.
And I would summarize that there's a reason they call them shaky leaves,
right,
and some of them are very shaky.
Yeah. They're it can be pretty frightening at times. You mentioned a little bit of the educational offerings that you're talking about that you do at GSP. But if you would elaborate a little bit more on the webinars, what kind of subjects are people going to find if they attend your webinars? Is it kind of all kind of across the spectrum, or are they specifically narrowed down to things?
Yeah, well, we try to when we put together the program. Right now, we're just putting together the 2024 lineup, but we try to have some nationally known speakers. We are also using some people who are only locally or regionally known.
Okay.
And the topics have been everything from some of the more popular ethnic groups, and like you've been saying, we've got Germans, we've got Italians, all Irish, all these major European groups, a lot of African Americans.
Sure.
But also we have presentations like one on the early canals and and moving the coal resources, things like that. So yeah, we're trying to keep it to a good mix, and we get an average of a couple of hundred people.
That's great.
To every monthly program.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I think when you talk about those programs like canals and railroads or whatever, I think, and it gets back to being a good family historian, it allows you to put your family in the context of the time in which they live. And I think that is such an important thing that I think if you just focused on the births, marriages, and deaths aspects of genealogy, you're really missing that family history, as opposed to simply just outlining a chart of people. So I appreciate that you do that. We try to do the same thing with a lot of the webinars and programs that we offer. I'd love to get a couple hundred people to a webinar, though. We're not usually that lucky. When someone starts out doing family history, let's call it that, because that seems to be more important, I think, in our discussion. What tips would you give to someone who is just starting to investigate their family history and is committed to really pursuing it?
Yeah. Well, as I told you, I've been doing it almost 40 years. So I'm somewhat old school, in that, slap your fingers before you start keyboarding on the internet.
Right.
And at first start with yourself. What do you know or think you know? Investigate your attic, your parents' attic. If you're lucky that your grandparents are still living, their attic. What certificates do they have there? Is there a family Bible? Are there military discharge papers? Start at home with the home resources, because as we were talking about, when you see stuff off on the internet, is it something from your family, or is it just something with somebody of the same name? That stuff that's in your family attic, that's going to be your family.
Right. That's the real deal.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm pretty. I definitely. Do I think that many people are not going to be tempted by the online experience? Well, of course they are going to do that,
Right,
but
right.
just make sure you don't omit the home sources or interviewing every family elder. And not just direct line, but older cousins, aunts and uncles,
Mhm.
people like that, because nobody ever begins genealogy too soon.
Mhm.
Somebody's always already gone by the time you start, and you never know when those people are going to be taken from you. And each one of them is a library. Each one of
Right.
them is a library, and if you don't get to interview them before they die, then you've let a library burn down on you.
That's a shame.
Yeah,
Well, Jim, thank you
yeah,
so much for joining us today on the Ohio Roots podcast. It was really a pleasure having you. I imagine I'll see you at the conference, the OGS conference in the spring. I hope anyway. And if not, I hope I'll see you again some other time.
I'm presenting 3 lectures and doing a luncheon, so you're darn
All
tootin' I'm
right.
going to be there.
Awesome. Then we'll see you there. Thanks, Jim, very much. You have a great day.
Thank you, Noel.
Bye. That was a really interesting conversation with Jim. I think it's really nice what the Genealogical Society of Pennsylvania is doing and how they're helping their members research their own Pennsylvania genealogy. I think it's great to see how organizations like the Genealogical Society of Pennsylvania and the Ohio Genealogical Society can work together and do many of the same kind of offerings for our memberships. That just makes it easier for all of us when we're doing genealogy. So thank you to James Beidler for joining us today, and thank you for listening to the Ohio Roots podcast.
The Ohio Roots podcast is brought to you by the Ohio Genealogical Society, the premier gateway for discovering your Ohio family history. Hosted by OGS Executive Director Noel Poirier and edited by Luke Poirier. Theme song is Beautiful Ohio, recorded by Bob Stanley and his orchestra in 1944. To learn more about joining the Ohio Genealogical Society, visit www.ogs.org.